The massive alien ship appeared above Earth like a silver mountain floating in space. Inside the vessel, Ambassador Veltar adjusted his breathing apparatus and studied the blue planet through the viewing screen. His gill slits fluttered with mild annoyance, another primitive world to catalogue and dismiss. Veltar belonged to the Hydrons, a species that had mastered space travel when humans were still discovering fire. His sleek, amphibious body moved gracefully through the ship's water-filled corridors as he prepared for what he expected to be a routine first contact. The Galactic Union had protocols for this. Meet the locals, assess their technology, offer limited trade if they seemed useful, then move on. What Veltar didn't expect was Kim Tae-ho. The human diplomat arrived at the meeting in a simple black suit, carrying nothing but a briefcase and a warm smile. Veltar had dealt with hundreds of species during his career, and they all followed the same pattern. Fear, then suspicion, then desperate attempts to impress the advanced aliens. Some species tried to hide their weaknesses. Others immediately started begging for technology. Kim Tae-ho did neither. "Welcome to Earth," Tae-ho said, bowing respectfully. "We are honored by your visit and excited to learn about your civilization." Veltar's translator device struggled with the concept. Excited. Most species were terrified during first contact. The ambassador studied the human carefully. Tae-ho appeared genuinely happy to meet them, not calculating what he could gain from the encounter. "We represent the Galactic Union," Veltar explained through his voice modulator. "We explore and catalogue developing civilizations." "That sounds fascinating," Tae-ho replied. "We'd love to hear about the other species you've met. Earth has so much to offer in return." There it was. Veltar's fins twitched with satisfaction. Finally, the human showed his true nature. Every species wanted something from the Union. "What exactly does Earth offer?" Veltar asked, expecting the usual list of resources or strategic advantages. Tae-ho's response caught him completely off guard. "Friendship," the human said simply. "We believe the galaxy is vast and lonely. No one should face its challenges alone." Veltar stared at the human diplomat. In 300 years of service, no species had ever offered friendship without conditions. There had to be a catch. "Friendship," Veltar repeated slowly. "And what do you expect in return for this friendship?" "Nothing," Tae-ho answered. "That's what friendship means. We help each other because we care, not because we have to." The ambassador's gill slits fluttered rapidly, a sign of confusion among his people. Every species in the Union had learned the hard truth about galactic politics. Trust was dangerous, kindness was weakness, self-interest was survival. The reptilian dominion had taught them that lesson during the trade wars. The Silicon Collective had reinforced it during the resource crisis. Even the peaceful Botanical Confederation had eventually shown their true nature when resources became scarce. "Your species is young," Veltar said carefully. "You don't understand how the galaxy works. Friendship is a luxury that advanced civilizations cannot afford." Tae-ho nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's exactly why the galaxy needs it." For the rest of the meeting, Tae-ho continued to speak about cooperation, mutual respect, and shared exploration of the stars. He offered Earth's art, music, and literature. He suggested cultural exchanges and joint scientific ventures. He never once asked what Earth would receive in return. Veltar left the meeting deeply troubled. Either this human was the most sophisticated liar he'd ever encountered, or humanity was genuinely different. Both possibilities worried him. Back on his ship, Veltar filed his report with the Union Council. He recommended provisional contact but warned that humanity's apparent altruism was likely a deception. No species could be that selfless and survive in the harsh reality of galactic politics. The Union agreed to monitor Earth, certain that time would reveal humanity's true, selfish nature. They had no idea how wrong they were. The emergency beacon from Colony Phi 7 screamed across space, reaching every Union monitoring station within 50 light-years. Deep beneath the asteroid's surface, 800 alien miners were trapped behind tons of collapsed rock and twisted metal. The mining operation, run by the industrious mole people of Subterrace, had been extracting rare crystals when seismic activity triggered the worst cave-in Union history. Union rescue ships arrived within hours. their crews working frantically to reach the trapped miners. The Subterrace engineers deployed their best drilling equipment, but the unstable rock formations made progress impossible. Every attempt to dig deeper caused more collapses, sealing the miners further from salvation. Commander Jektar, a veteran, Subterrace rescue specialist, stood before the holographic display showing the disaster zone. His forearms moved rapidly over the controls, but each scan revealed the same grim truth. Their technology wasn't designed for this type of rescue. The twisted metal beams and fractured rock created a maze that their equipment couldn't navigate. Time. Remaining for trapped miners, Jektar asked his technical officer. 48 hours of oxygen maximum, came the reply. The sealed chambers are holding, but barely. That's when the human ship arrived. The small vessel barely registered on Union sensors. Most species would have ignored such an insignificant craft, but Jektar was desperate enough to accept any help. The human captain introduced himself as Park Min-ho, an engineer from Earth's Deep Mining Corporation. "We heard your distress call," Min-ho said through the communication channel. "We might be able to help." Jektar's eye stalks twisted skeptically. "With respect, human, this is beyond your technology level. Our most advanced equipment has failed." Min-ho's voice remained calm and confident. "Sometimes the newest technology isn't what you need. We've developed something different." The human engineer explained his proposal. Earth had been experimenting with nano-drilling technology, microscopic robots that could navigate through the smallest gaps and gradually widen passages. The process was slow but precise, allowing them to create rescue tunnels without triggering more collapses. Nano-robots? Jektar's translator struggled with the concept. Impossible. If such technology existed, the Union would know about it. "We just invented it last month," Min-ho replied. "Still in testing phase. Hasn't been approved by our safety boards yet." The Union rescue coordinator's mandibles clicked nervously. Using untested alien technology could make the situation worse. But with 36 hours remaining and their own efforts failing, what choice did they have? "The risk is too great," announced Admiral Kosovar, the senior Union officer present. "We cannot trust primitive human technology with alien lives." Min-ho's response surprised everyone. "Then I'll go down myself. If the equipment fails, I'll be the one in danger, not your people." For 3 hours, Union officials debated while precious oxygen continued depleting in the collapsed mine. Finally, desperation overcame pride. They agreed to let the human try. Min-ho suited up in his environmental gear and descended into the disaster zone with his experimental equipment. The nano-robots, each smaller than a grain of sand, swarmed through cracks in the debris, like metallic insects. Slowly, methodically, they began clearing microscopic pathways. The process took 18 grueling hours. Min-ho worked without rest, manually guiding the robots through the most dangerous sections. When larger debris needed removal, he rigged improvised solutions using human engineering principles that seemed crude but proved effective. Union officials watched in amazement as the rescue tunnel gradually took shape. The humans' approach was completely different from their advanced technology, but it worked. The nano-robots carved a path that larger equipment couldn't create. When the first trapped miner emerged through Min-ho's tunnel, cheers echoed across the Union fleet. Over the next 6 hours, all 800 trapped workers reached safety. Not a single life was lost. Admiral Kosovar personally thanked Min-ho. As the exhausted human prepared to leave, "Your technology saved them all. The Union owes you a great debt." Min-ho shook his head tiredly. "No debt needed. Just glad we could help." As the human ship departed, Union officials filed their reports with growing confusion. The humans had risked their untested technology and their engineer's life to save complete strangers. They asked for nothing in return, not even recognition for their breakthrough innovation. It was the first crack in the Union's certainty about human nature. Dr. Lee Sora stepped off the transport shuttle onto the crystal surface of Luminos Prime, her eyes wide with wonder. The entire planet seemed to sing with harmonic frequencies as massive crystal formations stretched toward the purple sky. She had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, studying every available text about the mysterious crystalline civilization. The crystals were unlike any other species in the Union. Their bodies were living gemstone, refracting light into beautiful patterns as they moved. They communicated through complex harmonic vibrations that most aliens found impossible to understand. For centuries, they had remained isolated, rarely interacting with other species. Sora was humanity's first cultural ambassador to their world. Her mission was simple: learn about crystal society and establish better relations between their species and the Union. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. The trouble started during her first formal meeting with the Crystal Council. Sora had practiced the basic greeting sounds for months, but the crystal's language was more complex than anyone realized. What she thought was a respectful introduction actually translated to something completely different. The crystal beings around her began resonating with harsh, discordant tones. Their beautiful light patterns shifted to angry reds and blacks. Within minutes, crystal guards surrounded Sora, their bodies humming with threatening frequencies. "What did I say?" Sora asked desperately, but her translator device couldn't interpret the rapid, overlapping harmonics filling the air. The head of the Crystal Council, a massive being called Tonekeeper Vrex, pronounced judgment in sounds that made Sora's teeth ache. Her translator finally managed a rough translation: sacred insult, imprisonment, no forgiveness. Sora found herself locked in a crystal cage deep beneath the planet's surface. The walls absorbed sound, making communication impossible. Days passed with no contact from the outside world. Her food appeared through a slot, but no one would speak to her or explain what she had done wrong. Above ground, the diplomatic crisis escalated quickly. The Crystal Council declared all cultural exchange terminated. They demanded that humans never return to their world. The Union's other species shrugged and moved on. Cultural misunderstandings happened all the time in galactic politics. Losing. One anthropologist wasn't worth risking trade relationships, but humanity saw things differently. Choi Han-sol was a linguistics professor from Seoul University, specializing in impossible languages. When news of Sora's imprisonment reached Earth, he immediately volunteered for what most considered a suicide mission. He would go to Luminos Prime, learn the true crystal language, and somehow fix the diplomatic disaster. "This is madness," warned Ambassador Veltar during a Union Council meeting. "The crystals have made their position clear. Continued contact will only make things worse." Han-sol disagreed. "Dr. Lee is our colleague, our friend. We don't abandon people just because the situation gets difficult." The journey to Luminos Prime took 2 months. Han-sol spent every waking hour studying crystal harmonic patterns, trying to understand how their complex language actually worked. Previous Union linguists had treated it like a simple sound-based communication system. Han-sol suspected it was something far more sophisticated. On Luminos Prime, the crystals initially refused to see him. Han-sol camped outside their main city, playing simple harmonic patterns on instruments he had built during the journey. Day after day, he attempted basic communication, gradually learning the subtle differences between similar tones. Slowly, painfully, the language began to make sense. Crystal communication wasn't just about sound frequencies. It involved emotional resonance, temporal layering, and mathematical relationships between harmonic progressions. Each conversation was like a complex musical composition. After 4 months of dedicated study, Han-sol finally understood what had gone wrong. Sora's greeting had accidentally included a phrase that roughly translated to, "Your ancestors were worthless stones." In crystal culture, this was the worst possible insult, suggesting that their entire lineage lacked consciousness. Armed with this knowledge, Han-sol requested an audience with the Crystal Council. This time, he spoke their language properly, weaving harmonics that expressed deep respect, sincere apology, and genuine desire for understanding. The crystals were amazed. No alien had ever mastered their language to this degree. Tonekeeper Vrex's resonance shifted from suspicion to curiosity as Han-sol explained the misunderstanding and offered a formal apology on behalf of humanity. "Your species learns quickly," Vrex observed, his harmonics carrying notes of impressed approval. We learn because we care, Hansol replied in perfect crystal harmony. Our friend made an innocent mistake. We came to fix it and build understanding between our peoples. The Crystal Council deliberated for days, their harmonics creating beautiful music that echoed across the city. Finally, they reached their decision. Sora would be released, and humanity would be welcomed back to establish proper cultural exchange. When Sora emerged from her crystal prison, tears streaming down her face, she found Hansol waiting with a gentle smile. Ready to go home, he asked, but Sora shook her head. Not yet. Now that you've opened the door, we need to walk through it properly. Together, they spent another 6 months on Luminos Prime, creating the first comprehensive guide to crystal, culture and language. Their work became the foundation for lasting friendship between humanity and the crystalline civilization. The Union watched in amazement. Once again, humans had refused to abandon their own, even when logic suggested they should. The distress signal from the Vex homeworld cut through space like a scream of desperation. Hive Queen Zikth, ruler of billions of insectoid beings, sent the same message repeatedly. Our people are dying. Please help us. The plague had started in the outer colonies and spread with terrifying speed. The Vex, who lived in massive underground hives, couldn't escape the infection once it took hold. Their interconnected society, built on shared pheromone. Communication and close physical contact became their greatest weakness. Within weeks, entire hives went silent. The disease attacked the Vex nervous system, causing paralysis before death. Their advanced medical technology proved useless against this mysterious illness. Billions of insectoid beings faced extinction. The Union's response was swift and cold. A quarantine zone was established around Vex space. No ships in or out. The other species had learned from past pandemics that the safest approach was complete isolation until the disease burned itself out. Unfortunate, but necessary, declared Council Leader Morth during an emergency session. We cannot risk the plague spreading to other worlds. Ambassador Veltar, who had grown more thoughtful since humanity joined the Union, raised a concern. What about medical assistance? Surely we can help from a safe distance. The Council's decision was unanimous. Too dangerous. The Vex would have to fight the plague alone. Humanity disagreed. Dr. Yu Da-un was eating lunch in her medical station's cafeteria when the news arrived. A viral epidemiologist with 15 years of experience fighting Earth's worst diseases, she immediately understood what the quarantine meant. The Vex were being left to die. This is wrong, she told her colleague, Dr. Park Ji-won. We have the technology to help them. We're just choosing not to. It's too risky, Ji-won replied, echoing the Union's official position. Unknown alien plague, incompatible biology, contamination protocols. The Council is right to maintain quarantine. Da-yun stared at the holographic display showing Vex space, now surrounded by warning beacons. Somewhere behind those barriers, an entire civilization was disappearing. I'm going in, she announced. The Union command tried to stop her. Admiral Kosvar personally contacted her ship as it approached the quarantine zone. Dr. Yu, you are forbidden from entering Vex space. Turn back immediately. With respect, Admiral, I'm not under Union command. I'm a human medical officer responding to a humanitarian crisis. You'll be infected within hours. This mission is suicide. Da-yun's voice remained calm. Maybe. But someone has to try. Her ship, the medical vessel Hope's Dawn, crossed into quarantine space with a small team of volunteers. They had brought Earth's most advanced biological containment equipment and experimental antiviral treatments that had never been tested on alien biology. The Vex homeworld looked like a graveyard from orbit. Cities that once buzzed with activity stood silent. Da-jun's team landed near the capital hive, wearing full environmental suits and following strict contamination protocols. Queen Zikth met them at the hive entrance, her once majestic form weakened by the early stages of infection. Why do you risk your lives for us? She asked through her translator device. Because that's what friends do, Da-un replied simply. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of Da-un's career. Working in sealed laboratories deep within the dying hive, she and her team analyzed the plague's structure. The virus was unlike anything they had encountered, but it shared enough characteristics with Earth diseases to give them hope. The breakthrough came when Daun realized the plague attacked a specific protein structure in Vec's nervous systems. Earth had dealt with similar neurological viruses during the Bangkok epidemic of 2157. The treatments were experimental and dangerous, but they might work. "We need live test subjects," Daun told Queen Zixth during a briefing. "Volunteers who are willing to risk untested treatments." Thousands of infected Vecs volunteered immediately. They had nothing left to lose. The first trials failed completely. The modified Earth antivirals were too aggressive for Vec's biology, causing more damage than the plague itself. Daun's team worked around the clock, adjusting formulations and testing new approaches. On the 40th day, they achieved partial success. A group of test subjects showed improvement, though the treatment was still far from perfect. Daun knew they were running out of time. The plague was spreading faster. Then they could develop solutions. That's when she made the decision that would define her career. "We're going to try combination therapy," she announced to her team. "Human antibodies mixed with Vec's genetic material. It's never been attempted across species barriers." "The contamination risk," Dr. Kim Soo-jin protested, "is worth taking," Daun finished. "We're not leaving until we save them." The procedure required human volunteers to be directly exposed to modified plague samples, allowing their immune systems to develop antibodies that could then be harvested and adapted for Vec's biology. It was incredibly dangerous. Every member of Daun's team volunteered. The treatment worked. Within days, infected Vecs were recovering completely. The cure spread through the hives as quickly as the plague had, saving billions of lives. Queen Zixth offered humanity anything they desired. In gratitude, mining rights, technology, territory, permanent alliance, Daun politely declined everything. "We didn't do this for payment," she explained. "We did it because it was right." As the Hope's dawn departed Vec space, the entire civilization sent harmonic tributes that could be heard across 3 star systems. The Union monitoring stations recorded every note of their gratitude. For the first time, some Union species began to question their own policies. Maybe there was something to learn from humanity's approach to galactic relations. Meanwhile, Daun was already planning their next medical mission. There were always people who needed help somewhere in the galaxy. The economic collapse started with a single corrupted data transmission. The Union's vast trade network, managed by quantum computers spanning dozens of star systems, relied on perfect synchronization between financial hubs. When the main processing center on Mercantile Prime suffered a catastrophic system failure, the ripple effect spread across the galaxy within hours. Currency values crashed overnight. Trade routes that had operated for centuries suddenly stopped functioning. Supply chains that fed entire civilizations broke down completely. The sophisticated economic system that had sustained the Union for millennia simply ceased to exist. On the agricultural world of Verdania, farmer colonists watched their food shipments pile up in storage facilities with no way to transport them to paying customers. On the mining planet Excavus, workers continued extracting resources that could no longer be sold. The industrial world of Mechanis found its factories grinding to a halt without raw materials. Most devastating were the frontier colonies. These remote settlements depended entirely on regular supply deliveries from the core worlds. When the trade network collapsed, they were suddenly cut off from food, medicine, and basic necessities. The Union Council convened emergency sessions, but their solutions moved too slowly. Economic recovery would take years. New trade agreements needed to be negotiated. Financial systems had to be rebuilt from scratch. Meanwhile, people were starving. Regrettable but unavoidable, Council Leader Morth announced during a public broadcast. Emergency rationing will be implemented on affected worlds until normal commerce resumes. Emergency rationing meant that millions would die waiting for bureaucrats to fix their broken system. Zhang Wujin was managing Earth's grain exports when news of the collapse reached human space. A former logistics coordinator for Earth's global food program, he immediately understood what the crisis meant for vulnerable populations across the galaxy. "How many colonies are affected?" he asked his assistant Lee Kyung-ho during an emergency meeting. 47 worlds facing critical shortages, Kyung-ho replied, reading from multiple data streams. Estimated population at risk, 200 million beings across 12 different species. Wu Jin stared at the holographic map showing affected systems. Each red dot represented thousands of families facing starvation, while politicians debated economic policy. "What's Earth's current food surplus?" he asked. "About 30% above our needs," Kyung-ho answered. "The vertical farms have been incredibly productive this season, and our medical stockpiles, full capacity. The manufacturing centers have been preparing for our own expansion colonies." Wu Jin made his decision. "Contact every human settlement, mining station, and transport company. We're organizing the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history." The response from human colonies was immediate and overwhelming. Earth's Agricultural Council voted unanimously to donate surplus food stocks. The Mars colonies offered their entire reserve of medical supplies. Mining stations throughout human space contributed transport ships and fuel. Private citizens joined the effort without being asked. Human families sent personal savings to fund the relief mission. Children donated toys and comfort items for alien youngsters facing hardship. Elderly humans contributed family heirlooms to be sold for emergency supplies. Within 2 weeks, a massive fleet of human cargo ships departed for the affected systems. The convoy included everything from military transports to converted passenger vessels, all loaded with food, medicine, and basic necessities. The Union officials were baffled by humanity's response. "This makes no economic sense," Admiral Kosovar protested during a council meeting. "Humans are giving away resources that could be sold for enormous profit once our markets recover." Ambassador Veltar, who had been watching humanity's actions with growing fascination, offered a different perspective. "Perhaps they don't see this as an economic opportunity. Then what do they see it as? An emergency where people need help." The first human relief convoy arrived at the Centauri mining colony, just as their food reserves reached critical levels. Colony Administrator Thexidal, a four-armed mechanoid, watched in amazement as human volunteers unloaded tons of supplies without presenting a single invoice or contract. "What payment do you require?" Thexidal asked convoy leader, Captain Nam. "Bo Young, no payment needed," Bo Young replied. "We heard you were in trouble. But surely there are conditions. Trade agreements, future obligations." Bo Young looked confused. "Why would there be conditions? You're hungry, we have food, that's all that matters." Similar scenes played out across 47 star systems. Human aid workers arrived with supplies, medical assistance, and engineering support to help repair broken infrastructure. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to help more people. On Verdania, human logistics experts worked with local farmers to establish direct trade, relationships that bypassed the broken union network. On Excavus, human engineers helped retrofit mining equipment to work independently of centralized computer systems. The most touching moment came on the frontier world of New Harmony, where human teacher Song Mi-ra organized schools for alien children while their parents worked to rebuild their colony's economy. She taught universal mathematics using games and songs, helping young beings from different species learn together during the crisis. "Why do humans help us?" asked a young crystalline student through harmonic vibrations. Mira thought carefully before answering. "Because when someone falls down, you help them get back up. That's what neighbors do." As the Union's economy slowly recovered over the following months, the human relief effort continued. Even when trade networks came back online, humans maintained the aid programs they had established. Emergency food stockpiles remained in place. Medical supply chains continued operating. Infrastructure support teams stayed active. When Union economists calculated the total value of human assistance, the numbers were staggering. Humanity had donated resources worth more than the gross domestic product of most member species. They had essentially prevented an economic collapse from becoming a galactic catastrophe. Council leader Morth requested a private meeting with Jiang Wu Jin as the crisis finally ended. "Your species saved millions of lives," Morth acknowledged. "The Union is in your debt." Wu Jin shook his head politely. "There's no debt. We just did what needed to be done." "But the cost to your own economy." "We'll recover," Wu Jin interrupted gently. "People's lives won't." As Morth watched the human delegation depart, he began to wonder if the Union had been approaching galactic civilization completely wrong. The attack on Haven Colony came without warning. Nam Hyejin was tending her greenhouse when the first explosions shook the settlement. Through the transparent aluminum walls, she watched enemy ships descend from the purple sky like metal vultures, their weapons already firing. "Emergency broadcast to all residents," her communication device crackled. "Unknown hostiles attacking. Seek immediate shelter." Hyejin ran toward the community center, where colonists were gathering their families. Haven Colony was supposed to be safe, located deep within Union-protected space. The settlement of 800 humans had been farming this peaceful world for 3 years, growing food for the expanding human presence in the galaxy. The attacking ships bore no identifying marks, but their tactics were professional and brutal. They knew exactly where to strike. The communication array went down first, cutting off contact with the outside galaxy. Then they targeted the power generators, plunging the colony into darkness. "How did they find us?" shouted colony leader Dr. Bae Sung-min as explosions rocked the shelter. Haven Colony's location was classified information, known only to Union navigation computers and a few high-ranking officials. The answer would come later. For now, Hyejin and her fellow colonists huddled in underground bunkers, while enemy forces systematically destroyed their homes above ground. Captain Kang Ji-ho was 3 star systems away when he intercepted fragments of Haven Colony's distress signal. His patrol ship, the Indomitable Spirit, had been conducting routine security sweeps along human trade routes when the broken transmission reached his communication array. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving what appears to be an emergency broadcast from Haven Colony. Signal is very weak and intermittent." Ji-ho studied the garbled transmission. Most of it was unintelligible, but a few words came through clearly. "Under attack. Heavy casualties, need immediate assistance. Set course for Haven Colony, maximum speed," Ji-ho ordered. "Sir," his navigator objected, "we don't have authorization to enter that sector. Haven Colony is outside our patrol zone." Ji-ho's jaw tightened. 800 civilians are under attack. Authorization can wait. As the Indomitable Spirit raced toward Haven Colony, Ji-ho sent emergency requests to Union Command for backup support. The responses he received made his blood run cold. "Negative on assistance," came the official reply from Admiral Kosovar. "Unknown enemy strength and capabilities. Risk assessment indicates potential loss of additional vessels." Ji-ho couldn't believe what he was reading. "Admiral, we're talking about hundreds of human lives." "Regrettable losses," Kosovar responded coldly, "but strategically insignificant. One colony is not worth risking Union naval assets." The next message was even worse. Council leader Morth had officially declared Haven Colony a acceptable loss and ordered all Union ships to maintain safe distances from the battle zone. Ji-ho stared at his orders in disgust. The Union was abandoning human colonists to their fate because helping them might be inconvenient or dangerous. "Captain," his weapons officer asked quietly, "what are our orders?" "We're going to Haven Colony," Ji-ho announced to his crew. "Anyone who objects can transfer to an escape pod right now." Not a single crew member moved. The Indomitable Spirit arrived at Haven Colony 12 hours after the attack began. The sight that greeted them was devastating. The once peaceful farming settlement was in ruins, with enemy ships conducting systematic bombing runs on any remaining structures. Ji-ho's tactical display showed the enemy force. 6 heavily armed raiders with superior firepower and shields. His single patrol ship was completely outmatched. "Captain," his tactical officer warned, "we can't win this fight. They have us outnumbered and outgunned." "Then we don't fight fair," Ji-ho replied grimly. He opened a communication channel to the surviving colonists. Hyejin's voice, weak but determined, responded from the underground shelters. "Captain Kang? How did you find us?" "Heard you were having some trouble," Ji-ho replied. "We're here to get you out." What followed was the most daring rescue operation in human space. Ji-ho used his ship's superior speed and maneuverability to play a deadly game of cat and mouse with the enemy raiders. While they chased his ship around the planet, he coordinated with the colonists to establish evacuation points. The plan was desperate but brilliant. The indomitable spirit would make high-speed passes over the colony, using transport beams to pull up small groups of survivors while the enemy ships were distracted. It required perfect timing and incredible luck. He-Jin organized the evacuation from the ground, moving groups of colonists to different pickup points as Ji-Ho's ship danced between enemy fire. Children went first, then elderly colonists, then the wounded. Transport beam ready for next group, Ji-Ho announced during his fourth rescue pass. Negative, He-Jin replied. Medical team is still treating wounded in Shelter C. Give us 5 more minutes. You don't have 5 minutes, Ji-Ho warned as enemy ships closed in. They're learning our pattern. Then we'll make time, He-Jin said firmly. She led a desperate charge across the burning colony, drawing enemy fire away from the medical shelter. Her small group of volunteers used farming equipment and improvised weapons to create enough chaos to buy the medical team the time they needed. The evacuation took 14 hours. Ji-Ho's ship sustained heavy damage, and several colonists were injured during the rescue. But not a single life was lost. All 800 residents of Haven Colony made it safely aboard the indomitable Spirit. As they escaped the system, Ji-Ho received another message from Union Command. Captain Kang, you are ordered to report for disciplinary action immediately. Your unauthorized mission violated direct orders. Ji-Ho looked at the hundreds of rescued colonists crowding his ship's corridors, families reunited, children safe, in their parents' arms. Copy that, Admiral, he replied. I'll report as soon as these people are safely delivered to the nearest human settlement. When the truth about the attack came out, the betrayal ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The reptilian saurians, one of the Union's founding species, had secretly provided Haven Colony's coordinates to the raiders in exchange for territorial concessions. The Union's response was to file a formal protest and impose economic sanctions. Humanity's response was different. They quietly began establishing their own defense networks, realizing that they could only truly count on each other when crisis struck. The lesson was clear. In the vast, dangerous galaxy, sometimes the greatest enemy was the friend who abandoned you when you needed them most. The warning came from a deep space monitoring station on the edge of Union territory. Long-range sensors detected a massive fleet heading directly for Centralis, the Union's capital world and home to over 12 billion beings from across the galaxy. The enemy was the Iron Dominion, a militaristic empire that had been quietly building strength beyond the galactic rim for decades. Their fleet was enormous, 300 warships led by dreadnought-class vessels that dwarfed anything in the Union Navy. Admiral Shin Bo-Ra received the alert while reviewing defensive positions around Earth's outer colonies. As humanity's senior naval commander, she had been preparing for potential conflicts, but nothing on this scale. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, Union Command is requesting immediate assistance. All available ships to converge on Centralis for defensive operations. Bo-Ra studied the tactical display showing enemy fleet movements. The Iron Dominion would reach the capital in 72 hours. The Union had maybe 200 ships scattered across dozens of systems, most of them patrol vessels and cargo. Escorts, not true warships. What's humanity's current naval strength, she asked her chief of staff. 67 combat-capable vessels, came the reply. Everything from heavy cruisers down to patrol boats. It's our entire space navy. Bo-Ra stared at the numbers. Humanity had been part of the Union for less than 5 years. Their space fleet was tiny compared to older member species, built primarily for exploration and colony defense, not major warfare. The smart move would be to send a token force to show solidarity while keeping most human ships safe. That's what the other species were doing. The Crystalline Confederation had committed only 12 ships. The Hydran Assembly sent 15. Even the militaristic Saurians, who had thousands of vessels, were holding back most of their fleet to defend their own territories. Bo-Ra made a different choice. Signal all human vessels, she ordered. Full mobilization. Every ship capable of faster-than-light travel reports to Centralis immediately. Her staff exchanged worried glances. Admiral, her tactical officer protested, that leaves our own. Colonies completely undefended. If Centralis falls, our colonies won't matter. Bo-Ra replied grimly. "The Union capital is the symbol of galactic civilization. If we let it burn while hiding behind our own borders, what does that say about humanity?" The mobilization of Earth's fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Military vessels abandoned their patrol routes. Exploration ships cut short their missions. Even converted civilian transports volunteered to join the defensive effort, their crews knowing they were heading into almost certain death. Admiral Bo-Ra led the human fleet personally aboard her flagship, the Soul's Pride. As they approached Centralis, the scale of the crisis became clear. The massive city planet was already beginning evacuation procedures, with millions of beings trying to escape on overcrowded transport ships. The Iron Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and fire. Their ships were brutally efficient, designed for one purpose: destroying everything in their path. The lead dreadnought alone was larger than Earth's entire navy combined. Union forces took defensive positions around Centralis, but the battle was hopeless from the beginning. The enemy had superior numbers, better weapons, and stronger shields. Within the first hour of combat, 20 Union ships were destroyed or disabled. That's when Bo-Ra realized the real objective wasn't to win the battle. It was to buy time for the evacuation. "All human vessels," she broadcast on an open channel, "new mission parameters, we're the shield wall. Nothing gets through to those transport ships." What followed was the most heroic last stand in galactic history. Human ships threw themselves into impossible odds, using ramming attacks and suicide runs to slow the enemy advance. The destroyer Busan's Honor took on 3 enemy cruisers simultaneously, fighting until its hull cracked open. The frigate Daigu's Dream used its dying moments to ram an enemy dreadnought, creating a gap in their formation. Captain Ryu Jae-sung of the cruiser Incheon's Valor made the ultimate sacrifice when enemy ships broke through toward a refugee convoy carrying 50,000 alien civilians. Rather than retreat to save his ship, he ordered a direct collision course with the enemy flagship. "Tell my family I did my duty," were his last words before the Incheon's Valor exploded against the enemy vessel, destroying both ships instantly. Bo-Ra watched her fleet being systematically destroyed while coordinating the defense from her command bridge. Human ships were dying at a rate of 5 to 1, but their sacrifice was working. The evacuation transports were escaping, carrying millions of beings to safety. "Admiral," her navigation officer reported, "we've lost contact with 60% of our fleet. Remaining vessels are heavily damaged." Bo-Ra looked at the tactical display. Only 20 human ships remained operational, all of them battered and running on emergency power. The Iron Dominion still had over 200 vessels advancing on the capital. "Signal to all remaining ships," she ordered. "Final defensive line. Around the government sector. Whatever happens, we hold until the last transport clears the system." The end came when the Soul's Pride, surrounded by enemy vessels and taking fire from all directions, made its final stand above the Union Council chambers. Bo-Ra's ship absorbed countless hits while providing cover for the last group of evacuees, including most of the Union's political leadership. As her bridge filled with smoke and emergency alarms screamed, Bo-Ra received an unexpected message. The Iron Dominion commander was requesting direct communication. "Human Admiral," the enemy leader's voice crackled through damaged speakers, "your resistance has been noted. Surrender now, and your surviving ships will be spared." Bo-Ra's response was immediate. "We don't abandon our friends. You want this planet? You'll have to go through every last one of us." The Soul's Pride fought until its reactors failed and its weapons went silent. Admiral Bo-Ra and her crew died at their stations, buying precious minutes for the final transport to escape. When reinforcements finally arrived from the outer systems, they found Centralis in ruins, but not conquered. The Iron Dominion had eventually withdrawn, their own fleet too damaged to hold the capital. The human sacrifice had turned a catastrophic defeat into a strategic stalemate. Of humanity's 67 ships, only 8 survived the battle. 40,000 human naval personnel died, defending a world that wasn't even their own homeworld. The galaxy remembered their sacrifice. In the rubble of Centralis, a monument was erected listing every human vessel that fought in the battle. The inscription Read, "They stood when others ran, they fought when hope was lost. They died so others might live." The Union had learned something profound about their newest members. Humanity didn't just talk about friendship and loyalty. When the moment came, they were willing to die for it. The battle for Centralis was entering its final, desperate hours. Commander Lim Jun-ho watched from the bridge of his heavy cruiser, Gwangju's Spirit, as the massive Iron Dominion dreadnought Void Crusher carved through the Union's defensive lines like a blade through paper. The enemy flagship was 3 times larger than any human vessel, bristling with weapons that could vaporize smaller ships with single shots. Jun-ho had been fighting for 18 straight hours. His ship bore the scars of countless engagements, its hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into space. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across his bridge as damage reports poured in from every section. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "the Void Crusher is breaking through the outer defense perimeter. Current heading puts it on direct course for the civilian evacuation zone." Jun-ho's blood ran cold. The evacuation zone contained over 300 transport ships packed with refugees from dozens of species. Families, children, elderly beings who had lived on Centralis for generations were all crowded into vessels never designed for such numbers. If the Void Crusher reached them, it would be a massacre. "Union fleet status?" Jun-ho asked. "Scattered and regrouping," came the grim reply from his communications officer. "Admiral Kethavar's task force is 20 minutes out. The Crystalline Squadron is 15 minutes behind that." Jun-ho stared at the tactical display. The Void Crusher would reach the evacuation zone in 12 minutes. The massive dreadnought had already destroyed 2 Union cruisers that tried to stop it, brushing them aside like annoying insects. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "our main guns are at 40% power. Missile tubes 3 and 4 are offline. We can't significantly damage a ship that size." Through the viewscreen, Jun-ho could see the evacuation transports desperately, trying to reach the hyperspace jump point. The ships were overloaded and moving slowly, their engines straining under the weight of millions of refugees. Some were medical vessels carrying wounded from the battle. Others held entire alien families who had lost everything when their homes were destroyed. Among those transports was the hospital ship Mercy's Light, where Dr. Yu Da-un was treating casualties from the battle. Jun-ho had served with Da-un during the Vex Plague crisis. She had risked her life to save an entire alien species, asking for nothing in return except the chance to help more people. Now she was in danger, along with millions of other innocent beings. "Commander," his engineering officer's voice crackled over the intercom, "I've been running calculations on the Void Crusher's approach vector. There's something you need to know." "Go ahead, Chief." "Their shields are configured for long-range combat. Maximum protection on the forward arc, minimal coverage on the ventral sections. If someone could get close enough to strike from below..." Jun-ho understood immediately. A ship ramming the dreadnought's weakest point might penetrate the shields and reach the main reactor. It would be a suicide run, but it might work. "Chief, could we overload our own reactor core?" A long pause. "Yes, sir. But the explosion would destroy both ships. Anyone aboard wouldn't survive." Jun-ho looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people who had volunteered to serve humanity's expanding role in the galaxy. They had families waiting for them on Earth and the colonies. They deserved to go home, but the refugees deserved to live. "Attention all hands," Jun-ho announced over the ship's communication system. "I'm about to give you an order I never wanted to give. We're going to ram the Void Crusher. Anyone who wants to transfer to escape pods has 60 seconds to reach the evacuation stations." The response surprised him. Instead of running for the escape pods, his crew remained at their stations. "Sir," his helmsman said firmly, "we're with you." "This is a suicide mission," Jun-ho warned them. "So was defending this system," his tactical officer replied. "We knew the odds when we came here." Communications officer Lee Soo-jin spoke up from her station. "Commander, my sister is on one of those transports, the Crystalline medical ship, carrying wounded children. If we don't stop that dreadnought, she dies along with thousands of others." Jun-ho felt a surge of pride in his crew. These humans understood what was at stake. They were willing to give their lives for beings they had never met, from species they barely knew, simply because it was the right thing to do. "All right then," Junho said quietly. "Let's go save some lives." The Guangzhou's spirit changed course, diving toward the Void Crusher from below. The massive dreadnought's weapons tried to track the much smaller cruiser, but Junho's helmsman flew with desperate skill, using debris from destroyed ships as cover. "Reactor overload initiated," the engineering chief reported. "We have 3 minutes before detonation." Junho opened a final communication channel, broadcasting to the entire Union fleet and the evacuation transports. "This is Commander Lim Junho of the Earth vessel Guangzhou Spirit. To the refugees trying to reach safety, you are not alone. To our Union allies who have fought beside us, you have been worthy companions. To my fellow humans, remember that we measure our worth not by what we take from the galaxy, but by what we give to it." The Void Crusher finally noticed the approaching cruiser and turned its massive guns toward the small human ship. Energy blasts tore through the Guangzhou's spirits, weakened shields, but Junho's crew held their course. 30 seconds to impact," the helmsman announced. Junho thought about his childhood on Jeju Island, playing on beaches under Earth's yellow sun. He thought about his parents, who had taught him that strength meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. He thought about the millions of beings who would live because of what he and his crew were about to do. To anyone listening, Junho's final transmission echoed across the battle zone. "Friendship isn't about what species you belong to or where you come from. It's about standing together when everything seems lost. It's about choosing to help each other, even when it costs you everything." The Guangzhou's spirit struck the Void Crusher's ventral hull at full speed, its overloaded reactor detonating in a brilliant flash that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Both ships vanished in the explosion, taking Junho and his crew with them. The evacuation transports reached the hyperspace jump point safely. Over 4 million beings escaped to fight another day, carrying with them the memory of the humans who died to save them. In the aftermath of the battle, as Union fleets regrouped and began planning their counterattack, a new understanding spread through the galaxy. Humanity wasn't just another species seeking advantage in the cosmic arena. They were something unprecedented, a people who genuinely cared more about others than themselves. The age of human influence in galactic affairs had begun, built on the foundation of sacrifice, loyalty, and love. The Memorial Garden on New Centralis was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Built from the ruins of the old capital, it stretched across 12 hectares of carefully tended ground, where beings from every corner of known space could come to remember those who had fallen during the Iron Dominion War. At the center stood a simple monument made from earth granite and crystalline formations donated by every Union species. Carved into its surface were 47,000 names, every human who had died defending worlds that weren't their own, protecting people they had never met. Ambassador Veltar of the Hydrons stood before the gathered crowd, his gill slits fluttering with emotion as he prepared to speak. The memorial service had drawn representatives from every Union world, but today wasn't just about remembering the dead. It was about understanding what humanity had taught them about life. "We gather today not just to mourn," Veltar began, his words translated into dozens of languages, "but to acknowledge a truth we have been too proud to see. In all our centuries of civilization, we thought we understood the meaning of alliance, of cooperation, of friendship." He paused, looking at the human delegation sitting quietly in the front rows. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho was there, the same diplomat who had first offered friendship to a skeptical galaxy. Beside him sat the survivors of the battles, Admiral Shin, Bora, who had lost her entire fleet defending alien worlds, Dr. Yuda-un, who had risked her life to cure the Vex plague, and dozens of others who embodied humanity's approach to galactic relations. "We were wrong," Veltar continued. "We had treaties, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts, but we had never seen true friendship until humanity showed us what it looked like." The first speaker was Tonekeeper Vrex of the Crystalline Confederation. His harmonic voice resonated across the memorial garden as he shared a story few had heard before. "When the great harmonic disruption threatened our young in the outer colonies, we sent distress calls throughout the galaxy. The response was silence. Our emergency was too distant, too inconvenient, too risky for other species to address. But 3 human linguistics experts came to our world. They spent 8 months learning our most complex healing frequencies, working day and night to repair the damage to our children's consciousness matrices. They saved an entire generation of our people and asked for nothing in return. Next came Hive Queen Zikth of the Vex, her insectoid form moving gracefully to the speaking platform. My species faced extinction from plague. The Union declared quarantine and left us to die. Dr. Yu Dayun and her team broke that quarantine, risking their own lives to save ours. When we offered them anything they desired as payment, they declined. "We didn't do it for payment," she said. "We did it because it was right." This is when we learned that humans measure wealth not by what they accumulate, but by what they give away. The testimonies continued for hours. Each species shared moments of human compassion they had previously dismissed or forgotten. The Saurian Chancellor spoke of human aid workers who stayed during volcanic disasters when everyone else evacuated. The Botanical Collective remembered human engineers who spent years developing new agricultural techniques to help feed their expanding population. Admiral Kosovar, the veteran Union military commander, shared the most powerful story of all. During the siege of Outpost Kepler, my task force was surrounded and cut off from resupply. The situation was hopeless. Other Union species had written us off, already dividing our territorial holdings among themselves. Then, Captain Park Dong-hyun arrived with a single human corvette. He could have retreated safely, reported our position to higher command and let politics determine our fate. Instead, he spent 3 days running supply missions through enemy fire, keeping my forces alive until reinforcements arrived. When I asked him why he risked his ship and crew for us, he said something I will never forget, "Because you would have done the same for us." The truth is, we wouldn't have. But humans believed we were better than we actually were, and their faith made us want to become worthy of it. As the testimonies concluded, Council Leader Morth took the platform. The elderly mechanoid's optical sensors focused on the human delegation as he spoke. "For too long, we have operated under the assumption that intelligence inevitably leads to selfishness, that advancement requires the abandonment of compassion, that survival demands the sacrifice of others. Humanity has proven these assumptions false. They have shown us that true strength comes from lifting others up, that real wisdom means putting the welfare of friends above personal gain, that lasting civilization is built on foundations of love rather than fear." Morth paused, his mechanical voice carrying unusual warmth. "Today the Union Council formally adopts what we are calling the human principle, that the measure of any civilization is not its technology, its territory, or its wealth, but its willingness to sacrifice for the welfare of others. This principle will guide all our future decisions, shape all our policies, and define our relationships with each other and with species we have yet to meet." The crowd rose in applause that echoed across the memorial garden, but the humans remained seated, looking uncomfortable with the attention. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho was invited to respond on behalf of humanity. He approached the platform slowly, clearly moved by what he had heard. "We are honored by your words," he began quietly. "But we must be honest. We are not special. We are not perfect. We make mistakes, we have flaws, we sometimes fail to live up to our own ideals. The difference is that we believe everyone deserves a friend. Everyone deserves help when they need it, and everyone deserves to be treated with kindness regardless of what they can offer in return." He looked out at the assembled representatives. "Of dozens of species, the galaxy is vast and often dangerous. We face threats that no single species can handle alone. But if we truly stand together, if we truly care for each other as friends rather than merely allies, there is nothing we cannot overcome." The humans who died defending your worlds understood this. They didn't sacrifice themselves for humanity. They sacrificed themselves for all of us, because that's what family does. As the memorial service concluded, something fundamental had changed in galactic civilization. The old ways of thinking about interspecies relations, based on careful calculation of advantage, suspicious protection of interests, and cold assessment of profit and loss, began to give way to something unprecedented. Humanity had not conquered. the galaxy through superior technology or military might. They had transformed it through the simple but revolutionary idea that strangers could become friends, that differences could become strengths, and that the best way to ensure your own survival was to dedicate yourself to the welfare of others. The human principle became more than just a policy guideline. It became the moral foundation of a new kind of galactic civilization, one built on the radical notion that love was not a weakness to be overcome, but the greatest strength the universe had ever known. In the years that followed, when young beings from every species learned about the history of their galaxy, they would study this moment as the turning point when scattered worlds became a true family of species, united not by fear or necessity, but by the human understanding that everyone deserves a friend